Yo, whoa, what is going on YouTube? It's your boy Dan, aka aDrive. I'm bringing you guys a brand new Pokemon Unite tier list video. In this video, we're actually going to rank all the characters in Pokemon Unite based on the August 4th patch and update where they tweaked a handful of characters from Cinderace to Absol to just so many things got changed and nerfed and buffed, and a lot of changes. Gengar and Zeraora's ult, and so many things were tweaked around. I wanted to play the game for a few days before I gave you guys this tier list, as I wanted to get a feel for kind of the metagame and how things looked and shaked out. So hopefully you guys enjoy this one. If you guys have any thoughts or comments, feel free to leave them in the comment section below, and take a second to just drop a quick like if you haven't done so yet. Liking the video helps out the channel, and make sure you guys subscribe to the channel if you guys are new, as I post Pokemon videos every single day, and I've been streaming Unite pretty much every single day on twitch.tv/aDrive. I've been really enjoying the game. I'm a Masters level player now. I still have a lot to learn and a lot to improve on, but I definitely feel like we're getting there, and I've got about 500 games under my belt now, so I've played a lot of Pokemon Unite, that's for sure. But either way, we're gonna break these Pokemon down, S tier being the best, C tier being the worst. I actually decided to scrap the D tier in this one, because I really feel like while there are Pokemon that are standouts, most Pokemon have at least some role in the game. When you get to the Masters tier, you start to see more or less the same like 8 to 10 Pokemon. But ultimately, I think that every Pokemon can be viable in the right hands. And I think if you send most Pokemon to jungle and they get a few levels on things, they can actually be pretty strong. Obviously, all of this is subject to change as new patches come out. I actually think we're gonna get Blastoise this week, so really excited about that. Without further ado, let's get it started with. The Pokemon that I know most is Crustal, and we're actually gonna kick off Crustal, and I think I'm gonna put him, he's kind of like A minus, B plus, I really feel like. I'm gonna put him in B tier. Crustal is an incredible defender that can feature two different main sets. Stealth Rock doesn't really get factored in here. X-Scissor obviously is your main attacking move, and then you either have Shell Smash for mobility and offense, or you have Rock Tomb for kind of more bulk and defense. I think it's a really, really good defender, but I do feel like there's a particular defender that really, really outclasses Crustal. So while it's my favorite pick in the game right now, I do feel like he's a Pokemon that could use a little bit of buff. Maybe a little offensive buff. I think defensively he's really good, but a lot of the time people, myself included, run the Shell Smash set, but you lose so much of your bulk and what that role really is, so it's kind of tricky. Moving on to Cramorant. Cramorant was a Pokemon that did get nerfed. Its Whirlpool got nerfed, but Cramorant is one of the best early game laners in the game. I'm actually going to put him in A tier, because even with that Whirlpool nerf, Cramorant is so incredibly strong. He can do some incredible zoning with his ult move and really perform some incredible crowd control. But like I said, early game, Cramorant is able to shine. He's one of the most devastating Pokemon to face in lane, simply because his Whirlpool steals so much and gives such an early advantage. And what I mean by that is his Whirlpool is able to basically suck up those Apalms and Audinos and those early game Pokemon that you're fighting for in the top or bottom lane, generally top. And because of that, it gives a massive XP advantage to the other side, or the side that's running the Cramorant. So he's just such an oppressive Pokemon in the early game, and he stays relatively strong late game. He's not as good, but he can fulfill that role, and his Unite move is super duper strong. So I think Cramorant definitely deserves its A tier status here. Moving along is Zeraora. Zeraora is one of those Pokemon that I think early game, like newer players, really find it super devastating. I still feel like it's really strong. It did obviously receive some changes to its moves. I think it stays in A tier. Its Unite move kind of buff, I'm sorry, nerf rather. Its Unite move nerf definitely hurt it a little bit, but it's still super duper strong. It's really, really strong early game. Generally, you're gonna see it in the jungle, so it's gonna be kind of getting those Bouffalants and Ludicolo and kind of shredding teams from lane. Its movement is so good. It can move so quickly around the map, and it can be really devastating in the right hands. I think in lower elo, it's a little bit more devastating, as there's typically better junglers as you move up in the ranks, but Zeraora stands strong in A tier for me. Now we're gonna take a look at Greninja. Greninja's a Pokemon that is very interesting. I think a lot of people really kind of pivoted away from Water Shuriken into Surf, and Surf is so critical because it's one of the best objective stealing moves in the game, and the game is all about objectives. I've learned a lot over these last few weeks in my first MOBA game, and it comes really down to a lot of Dreadnought fights, a lot of Rotom fights, and of course Zapdos at the end. And Greninja's Surf is so good at stealing those objectives, and because of that, I think he definitely deserves the A tier spot. He has incredible mobility. He obviously has that great range attack, so he's actually pretty decent in lane early game as well because of his range. And I like that they've actually changed Cinderace, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, to allow Greninja to be a little bit better of a range attacker. But Water Shuriken seems to have taken a step back in favor of Surf, and again, it's just such a powerful move, and it actually restores his HP, which is kind of crazy. So he can actually stay around in team fights pretty long and stay away from the enemy, and then kind of rush in with Surf, and it can be really, really powerful. The next Pokemon is Absol, and Absol received a handful of buffs despite people thinking that maybe he shouldn't. I think Absol is really, really good in my opinion. In the right hands, I think this thing's a monster. Obviously getting buffs to a handful of his different attacks. I know I'm kind of heavy loading A. That's just kind of how the things played out. I might jump around this list a little bit more. But I think Absol's still really devastating. He's kind of bad in lane. Like early game, he's pretty good, but if he doesn't have that level jump, he definitely struggles a little bit. But when you send Absol to the jungle, he can definitely be one of the more devastating attackers with a handful of different sets, whether you're running like the Psycho Cut set or whether you're running like Pursuit Night Slash. You got a couple different options there. So I do feel like Absol can be pretty devastating there. I'm gonna kind of skip around a little bit. Let's talk about Charizard. Charizard, I think, is an interesting Pokemon. Got a handful of different buffs, right? So they actually changed his cooldown to a bunch of different his moves, his Fire Blast and his Flamethrower. They changed the knockback on Fire Punch. So they actually tweaked Charizard quite a bit. But I do feel like Charizard is still incredibly underwhelming at this point in time. A lot of people think that its Unite move makes him invincible. It doesn't. He does have a solid Unite move. I haven't really played it a ton with Energy Amplifier or anything like that. But I do feel like Charizard itself is a little bit on the weak side. It's very weak early game until it gets to its evolved form. Once it hits level 9, it can actually put in some work, but if it doesn't get there really quickly, it falls behind really, really fast, and it's, again, very, very weak in the early game because it stays as Charmander. It takes a while to get to Charmeleon. And again, it just kind of falls behind really quickly. So I do think Charizard is our first C tier. I feel like even with those buffs, it still struggles to hang in there against some of the other Pokemon. And you have to look at these Pokemon not only as their own, but how they kind of stack up against other Pokemon in their same category. And Charizard simply just does not keep up with the other all-arounders in the game, in my opinion. Speaking of which, one of the best Pokemon in the game still stands strong, and that is Lucario at S tier. There's no doubt about it in my mind that Lucario is one of the most incredible Pokemon in this game. We talked a little bit about Greninja stealing objectives. Lucario's Power-Up Punch is so good for that. The fact that he can charge it up and just dash forward and steal that Dreadnought or steal that Zapdos makes him insane. His mobility is ridiculous with Bone Rush. The fact that he can zip around the map and ultimately really devastate opposing teams. He's super good in lane, which I think makes him really powerful. Early game and late game, like he doesn't really have a power drop off. He starts off as Lucario, so he's so good throughout the entirety of the match. I think he's really strong early game though, and once that Lucario hits level 5 and does access Power Punch, which you can usually get before the first, you definitely get it before the first Dreadnought, it can be really devastating because you start taking all the Bs from the opponent and you start really starting to steamroll those levels, and ultimately Lucario is just by far the best all-arounder in my mind, and I think that that's part of the reason why you see a Charizard getting such a bad rating, because Lucario is just that much better than Charizard in my mind. Speaking of really good Pokemon, I think why don't we put Alola Ninetales next? I think Alola Ninetales still deserves its S tier spot. This is a Pokemon that can do so many different things. It can support the team with Aurora Veil, which is incredibly strong. It can wall things off with its Avalanche move. Blizzard and Dazzling Gleam, two really, really good attacks as well. And Ninetales' basic attack is probably the best in the game, and that's really what's incredible. I'll be honest, I haven't mastered this Pokemon. It's not a Pokemon I've played a ton, but I've played against really good Ninetales, and I can tell you that they can be devastating, especially if they have that freeze combo on lock. If they're able to activate those freezes on you and hit you with the various combination of moves to activate the freeze, the little crystal above your head, then Ninetales can be really, really good. So it's an offensive character, but it can support the team with Aurora Veil, and it can deal a tremendous amount of damage, and I think it still deserves that S tier spot there for sure. Now, probably the most controversial Pokemon in the game, I would say, is Gengar. Gengar received some nerfs and some buffs, which was kind of funny. They nerfed its Hex, so his invulnerability frames were reduced, which means it's a little easier to hit him while he's doing Hex, and it was bugged for a few days. So I'll be honest, I haven't seen a lot of Gengar in high elo right now. A lot of people just kind of have passed it off for other things. I know in low elo it is very, very difficult to deal with, and I know that it's probably the most frustrating Pokemon to come up against is Gengar. I personally think it still deserves its S tier spot. I'm gonna be honest. I think you could argue A tier for sure, but I feel like it still deserves its S tier spot. I think Gengar in the right hands is still very, very strong. Obviously, it has to go jungle because it really needs to hit level 7 so it can get access to that combination that it uses with Hex and Sludge Bomb. But I think there's some viability there for Shadow Ball and Dream Eater too, which are two moves that got buffed tremendously heading into kind of the most recent patch. So I'm curious to see how that functions out because there's a lot of damage to be dealt there, and being put to sleep and then hit again with Dream Eater is pretty devastating too. But ultimately, I think that Hex combo is still really strong. Gengar does have its downside, right? It's incredibly frail, so if it gets hit, it's probably going to take a tremendous amount of damage, but Hex is just so good, and the fact that its Unite move allows it to kind of basically get out of dodge and really kind of navigate that map and those encounters and those engagements so incredibly well. I do still feel like Gengar is one of the top Pokemon in the game. And that's just how I feel. I really feel like it's that good still. Moving on to the next one, why don't we take a look at Gardevoir. Gardevoir is the newest character to the game, and I'm really hopeful that we're going to get Blastoise this week, but Gardevoir is the newest character to the game. It's a ranged attacker, and it struggles early game because Ralts is so bad, right? Like, Ralts is really, really frail, doesn't really have a ton of offensive output until it evolves into Kirlia, and even then, you really need to get Gardevoir. Late game Gardevoir is really good, though. That's the thing. Psyshock is super good for objectives. Moonblast is really good. You got a lot of options with this thing, and once you get it to that Gardevoir, as long as you're not too far behind, Gardevoir can be devastating for the opponent. But I feel like its early game is really, really weak, and generally there's better Pokemon that can function in the jungle role than Gardevoir can. So this is another one where I kind of feel like it's B+, A-, but I'm actually going to put it in B tier for now. And again, that doesn't mean that Gardevoir is a bad Pokemon. I just feel like its early game struggles really set it back. And again, while it's super duper strong late game and in the right hands, I just feel like it's a little underwhelming compared to some of the other Pokemon. I feel like Greninja, Ninetales, some of those Pokemon are doing its role a little bit better right now. And, you know, I don't see a ton of jungle Gardevoirs. You could definitely send it there. But again, there's other Pokemon that kind of do that role better. And that's a Pokemon we're going to talk about next, which is Cinderace. Now, Cinderace has been probably the top pick. Like, if you were to break it down of the top Pokemon that are being utilized in Pokemon Master, or Pokemon Unite rather, in the Masters tier, Cinderace has been probably the main meta pick because of its range, because it's so good in lane, it's so good in jungle, it's Pyro Ball and the fact that it stacks damage when you get the burn animation on people. It's so good. The fact that, and actually Blaze Kick is even better. They just buffed Pyro Ball. They've reduced its basic attack. I do feel like Cinderace could potentially be A+ or S. I think for now I'm actually gonna put it, I feel like I gotta put it in S tier still. Yeah, I'm gonna put it in S tier. I really think Cinderace is that good. I feel like most team compositions right now are utilizing Cinderace just because, again, his ranged attacks are so good. And we will look at like a Cinderace versus a Gardevoir. I almost would always rather the Cinderace because it just evolves faster. It's a better laner early game. It's the fact that it can kind of get in and out of team fights really quickly with Feint. Feint is so good. It's got a lot of things going for that, and that's even with the nerfs to its basic attack. They did buff Pyro Ball. They kind of tweaked its moveset a little bit to kind of offset the kind of advantage that Blaze Kick was giving. But I do feel like Cinderace is really, really that good right now. Again, it can function both in jungle and in lane very effectively, and it gets to Cinderace pretty quickly. So if you can get to that level of final evolution, you're going to be able to kind of steamroll the opponent pretty fast there. The next Pokemon we'll talk about is Snorlax. Snorlax, I think, is I don't even think we have to debate this. I think Snorlax is S tier right now. I feel like Snorlax is one of the best kits in the game. And actually, probably, if I had to say what do I think is the best move in the game right now, I do think it's block. I think when you talk about a game that's so revolved around objectives and really crowd control and separating the team from the engagements and splitting opponents up and pushing them away from things, Snorlax by far excels beyond, I think, almost any other Pokemon in its role in terms of defenders. I feel like it's miles beyond Crustal. It's miles beyond Slowbro and Wigglytuff, I think, has the wrong role. It's miles beyond those Pokemon in my mind. I feel like Snorlax, what it can do is just so devastating. Being able to wall Pokemon completely off objectives, the fact that it can stun with its Heavy Slam, and even its other set. I mean, you can run Flail and Yawn's not even that bad. Like, Yawn can be really devastating too. But ultimately, just the fact that once you get that block, I think it's level 6, you can just completely shield things off of objectives. And that alone just makes Snorlax so incredibly good. And that's talking like mid to late game, but in the early game, Snorlax is so devastating in lane because its tackle, where it lunges forward, is so strong. The fact that after you tackle, you get your boosted attack after that, you're really going to be able to push forward because of your immense amount of health and steal a lot of those early game farms. And usually what you see, like if you run into like a Snorlax Vulpix or a Snorlax Kramer in lane, you just get run over and you get bullied. And you're playing top lane and you're so far behind in those first few engagements because Snorlax is so oppressive in the early game as well. And then late game, it doesn't even have to have the level advantage. It can just use block and really protect a team, or like I said, split up enemies. So in my mind, Snorlax is by far top tier. In my mind, there's no doubt about it. I think you could argue about Cinderace. You could argue about Gengar. You could even argue about Ninetales. I don't think you could argue about Lucario. But to me, Snorlax, in my mind, is just, it's the premier defender in the game. And I hope that Blastoise can shake things up a little bit, because to me, there's such a far gap between Snorlax and the next character. That's just in its tier in my mind anyway. Moving forward again, We've got the supporter LDgos. I feel like LDgos is so good in what it does because it's so unique in what it does. There's no other Pokemon in the game that provides healing like LDgos does. And while it did get some nerfs, obviously, its Unite move got nerfed, and its main move, I believe it's Cotton Guard, got nerfed. I always get the two mixed, Cotton Guard and Cotton Spore. I think it was Cotton Guard that got nerfed. It's still very, very good. I'm gonna actually move it to A tier. I do feel like because it fits that role so uniquely, you could definitely argue S tier as well. But LDgos is so good, and I feel like every time I face up against an LDgos, I know we're immediately behind because while it doesn't really deal a ton of damage, it has that movement buff with Leaf Tornado. It's healing its team. Its Unite move is incredibly good for team fights, and that's the name of the game in Pokemon Unite is team fights, right? So LDgos is a Pokemon that is premier at that. And again, we look at a Pokemon like Blissey, and we hope that Blissey can shake things up for us because, again, LDgos is the only Pokemon that really fulfills that role right now, which allows it to stand above the rest by a long shot. So Wigglytuff definitely has the wrong background here, so pardon that. It's supposed to be in the supporter role, which is what I thought, but Wigglytuff is one of the Pokemon that received the most buffs from the past patch, and I would say it actually got the most buffs. Its HP got buffed, its defense and special defense got buffed tremendously. It's got an incredible crowd control move and Sing. The fact that it can devastate multiple targets and put them to sleep and form itself as an incredible supporter makes it so good, and it gets that so early game. Level 4, you get access to Sing. Its Double Slap and Dazzling Gleam are both relatively strong moves that can actually deal a tremendous amount of damage. So the new bulk to Wigglytuff, in my mind, makes it one of the better supporters. It's hard to put it in the same tier as LDgos, but I really feel like it deserves it. I'm actually going to put it in A tier right now. I think a good Wigglytuff paired with an incredibly powerful laning Pokemon like Wigglytuff Lucario or even Wigglytuff like Kramer, I think is another good one. The fact that you can like devastate multiple targets with Sing is so good, and again, that new buff to its bulk just makes it very unkillable, especially in the late game. Its Unite move allows a defensive buff to its allies, and I think it actually adds shields to them, so that's really, really powerful. So the fact that Wigglytuff can do all of that and now isn't gonna die right away, especially early game, I really feel like it's become one of the premier supporters in the game. It's hard to compare it to LDgos though, because again, LDgos does something so unique in the fact that it's healing so well, but I do feel like Wigglytuff has moved up quite a bit in this game. Coming in next, we've got Slowbro here as another defender. Slowbro, there's only 3 defenders right now. Slowbro, Crustal, Snorlax. Snorlax is just miles beyond the other ones. I'm actually going to put Slowbro in B tier right now. I feel like Slowbro does have some really cool things like telekinesis going for it, and it does have decent mobility through Surf and being able to kind of deal damage that way. It's actually pretty devastating, but I just feel like Snorlax is so far beyond where Slowbro is, and while I think Crustal and Slowbro are, I feel like they're definitely deserving of the same tier. I would actually put Crustal a little bit above Slowbro in my mind, just because its mobility is so much better with the option of Shell Smash. I like its trapping option, but in the right scenarios, Slowbro can definitely be devastating with telekinesis, so I don't want to write that off. I do feel like Slowbro is pretty strong. It's got incredible bulk, and its shields are really strong, but again, I just feel like it's just so far behind where Snorlax is in my mind. I can't possibly rate it any higher than this, just the way I'm thinking right now. Moving forward, let's take a look at Garchomp here. Garchomp is a very interesting all-arounder, right? This is a Pokemon, I'm actually going to put him in C tier, and that might ruffle some feathers, but I really feel like Garchomp is incredibly underwhelming in this game right now. You almost never see it in the high elo because there's just better options. That's just really what it comes down to. Lucario, much like I talk about Slowbro and Snorlax, Lucario is so far ahead of where Garchomp is because Garchomp starts the game so slow. He's so slow to start. Gible is basically useless for the first half of the game. And that's tough, man. That's tough. In a game that I know revolves so much around those final 2 minutes, Gible is just so bad early game. And it takes so long to get it to Garchomp. When you finally do, Garchomp is incredible. Don't get me wrong. Listen, Garchomp's really good. But you're also going to be facing off against other Pokemon of a similar level, and it's really hard to justify sending Garchomp to jungle to get that level advantage when there's just significantly better junglers. So I really feel like Garchomp kind of gets the shaft here, but it's just underwhelming at this point in the game. And we look at the last all-arounder in Machamp, and I feel like Machamp is so much better than Garchomp as well, which is part of the reason why Garchomp and Charizard get pushed so far down on this list, because Lucario really is that good, and I feel like Machamp is really that good as well. I'm actually going to put Machamp in A tier. Submission is one of the craziest moves in the game, dude. It is actually ridiculous, especially when submission directly counters the most common used held item in eject button. That's nuts! The fact that it just you can eject button and then get yanked back with submission, which is just insane. Machamp has crazy damage output, it has really good bulk. A lot of times you'll see it go jungle, but it can function in lane too. It is a little bit weak until it gets to Machoke, but Machoke can hold it down pretty well. And then ultimately, once you get the Machamp, you can usually shred teams. So I don't think it's quite as good as Lucario, but I do feel like Machamp and Lucario are miles beyond where Charizard, Garchomp are right now, because they have a better early game and they have a really strong late game as well. So I'm going to stick pretty strongly with that. I know that these guys get the shaft here, but I really feel that way. So moving on, we've got Pikachu here. Pikachu is another one, man. Like, Pikachu, I feel like, has a really strong early game. Electro Web is really good. Electro Ball is a super cool attack, but it just does not stand up among the other attackers in the game right now. It just does not. It does not. It's so frail. It does not hold up to the other ranged attackers in the game. So I can't possibly give Pikachu a higher rating than B tier right now. I do think it's good. I just don't think it's that good. So for now, we're going to keep Pikachu in B tier. Again, early game, very strong, super frail, but late game, it really falls off in my mind. I just don't feel like it's able to compete late game with some of the other Pokemon. And last but not least is Mr. Mime. Now, Mr. Mime is a Pokemon that's very interesting. I think in the right hands, Mr. Mime can be devastating as a support. Its walls are really good. Guard Swap, Psychic, Guard Swap, Confusion can deal tremendous amounts of damage. I think that Confusion and Barrier, if you can place those barriers and bash something into them, Mime can be really good, and he can obviously split things off with crowd control. So I'm actually going to put Mime in B tier here as well. I don't quite think that Mime is as good as LDgos, and I guess you could argue Wigglytuff maybe goes down to B in this context here, because it's hard to put Wigglytuff that much higher than Mime, but I do feel like Wigglytuff is really good right now. Sing is so good. But again, ultimately, Mime can deal tremendous amounts of damage, especially if you're really strategic about bouncing things off with Confusion, off of walls and things like that. I think there's a lot of value there. But yeah, man, I think this is actually pretty solid. I feel really good about this tier list. Obviously, things are subject to change as kind of the game progresses. There's no Talonflame, I just realized. Why is there no Talonflame? I don't know why Talonflame's not here. Did they forget Talonflame in this? I have no idea what happened. Okay, well, let's talk about Talonflame then. I just was like, wait a minute, I feel like I'm missing a Pokemon. The tier list is missing Talonflame. I don't know where it went. So Talonflame, Talonflame got a tremendous amount of, but just pretend Talonflame's here. KG will edit Talonflame on the screen. Pretend Talonflame's here. Talonflame is a Pokemon that got a tremendous amount of buffs in terms of its various moves. It can deal a tremendous amount of damage early game, but it's a Pokemon that really needs to go jungle to get that level advantage, and it's like such an all or nothing Pokemon, right? It can charge in with high movement and get big hits off, but it's the frailest Pokemon in the game, basically. So I do actually feel like Talonflame still falls into C tier despite of its buffs. It can be really good, but I just don't think it competes with the rest of the Pokemon right now. I feel like Talonflame still is significantly below some of the other attackers. And again, it's just so frail. So while it is really good at getting in and out of battle, I just feel like it just doesn't stack up. I really don't. I don't think it's nearly as good as a Cinderace right now, or a Ninetales, or a Greninja, or Kramer. I just don't feel like Talonflame is there. I don't know what happened, but this tier list, which I've used in the past, is missing Venusaur too. Why is it missing Venusaur? I have no idea. I can't believe I almost forgot Venusaur. Venusaur is a Pokemon that got tremendous amount of buffs in the most recent patch, and we're gonna talk about Venusaur for a second. I'm actually gonna put Venusaur in B tier because we previously had it in D tier when we had a D tier, but Venusaur is significantly improved, right? The biggest thing is Solar Beam. We talk about stealing objectives, being able to fire off a massive Solar Beam, deal incredible amount of damage across the map, and when you get it to a high enough level, it actually has a 5-second cooldown, so Solar Beam can be incredibly powerful and a really strong move. The problem with Venusaur, though, is it really lacks mobility. A lot of these offensive characters like Cinderace and Greninja, they have tremendous mobility, Zeraora, etc., Absol as well, and Venusaur really lacks that, and a missed Solar Beam basically sets you back so far. And while it seems easy to just like aim it and hit them, like Pokemon are moving, right? So like you can shoot it in one spot and they just can sidestep it. So Venusaur is incredibly good at stealing objectives. It can come in, swoop that Dreadnought at the end. It can swoop those Zapdos, and that's super valuable. Don't get me wrong. I do still feel like Venusaur is a little bit behind, but it's much better than it was before. I feel like Giga Drain or Sludge Bomb plus Solar Beam is super duper strong. And early game, Bulbasaur is really good too. Razor Leaf Seed Bomb is really strong early game. It's a Pokemon that I've enjoyed using in the jungle. Laning, it's okay, but I like using it as a jungler because I feel like getting that early Solar Beam is so good for that Dreadnought fight. And you could really deal some massive damage there. But ultimately, I think it does still deserve to be in B tier right now, as again, it just doesn't have kind of the same mobility as some of these other attackers have. And its power is really good, but again, it's so all or nothing on that power, because hitting those solar beams can be quite difficult. So that's my tier list. I got them all this time, even though Talonflame was missing. I got them all this time. So that's what I'm thinking right now about the metagame. Obviously, things are subject to change as they make patches and changes. If you agree or disagree, feel free to let me know in the comments section below. By no means have I played extensively every single Pokemon, but I've played against a lot of Pokemon. And again, I've got about 500 games under my belt now. I'm learning the game. I'm learning the genre. I'm really starting to get this game down, and I'm having a blast doing it. So feel free to check me out at twitch.tv/aDrive, where I stream pretty much every single day. Drop a like on the video if you thought it was helpful. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new, and if you want to see more tier list videos for the patches, let me know. I didn't want to rush this one out. I wanted to make sure that I had a chance to play with the patch and really get a feel for those changes as opposed to just making assumptions about them. So yeah, that's that, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys on the next Pokemon Unite video. Peace.